everyone. I think we're ready for the fireside chat, and we hope that you all can grab something that is happening in the startup world, and especially in the edtech. There are a lot of incubation centers. They are helping the startups to come up, brush up their skills, and this is what we are going to discuss. Now, lately we've heard that the average time which was recorded in 1994, the average span of attention was around 12 seconds. But now in 2023, when we have recorded the attention span of the youngsters it's dropped down to 8.25 seconds. Now in this entire digital world where the lifespan is continuously decreasing, how is the educators brushing their skills up, or how are they coming up with new ways to grab their attention and hold them?
Hello, hi everyone. This is Sunil Dahiya. I represent Wadhwani Foundation here, and we are in the space of global skilling in 26 countries, and the entire objective is to ensure how we can skill the youth today to match what you just said. So just to answer your question, yes, exactly, because the attention span right from the learner from a very early age, going right up to the even graduation, post-graduation, and even later at the workspace itself is changing. So what we are seeing, which is happening now, is it's the era of reels and TikToks and all that stuff. So as we are working on this, what we have seen is if the content is mapped to this content adopts this function. So having very smaller videos, which are very engaging, and if they are engaging, then you go to the next one and then to the next one. And the entire piece is to be connected with small pieces with adaptive assessments, and at the end of it, the outcomes. So that is what we have been seeing and witnessing at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Professor Madhu Veerarathan. I'm the Provost Chancellor of MAHE at the Bangalore campus, and delighted to be here. I have been facing this issue for a while as to how do you get students engaged, particularly when you're a professor and you teach undergraduate and postgraduate classes. One way to do this is what I call micro-learning. You can actually break, just what Sunil was saying, you can break the content into really small bits, right? And that would probably sort of excite today's learner, because their attention span is literally decreasing by the minute, right? So micro-learning, I think, is quite useful. The second thing I've found useful is actually making the learning more interactive. By that, I mean, you could probably have quizzes, polls, discussions in classes, as opposed to a straight blackboard or a whiteboard marker teaching. It's a very conventional way of doing. I don't say it's bad, but certainly I think that is an important aspect. The third thing I feel is important is, can you gamify? Gamification to me is quite an important way of actually reaching out to today's learner, because their understanding in technical courses such as economics or finance, or even you do math, for example, right? The traditional way just does not reach to them. So gamification is quite useful. And the fourth thing I felt was if you can digitalize, again, making the learning much more interactive, a dual sort of, two-way street, as opposed to being a monologue where a professor or a teacher literally goes on and teaches. So some things that Sunil had said, I very much sort of endorse it, but I'd like to see more academics, more teachers, more educators looking at gamifying the content and taking it to the class where they can really see that to be an applied sort of way of learning. So that would be my opening sort of remarks.
Yeah, that's great. I've taken some points from you, and definitely we're going to apply it. Now here we are observing that a lot of high-tech industries are collaborating with the universities for robust talent acquisition. But how do you feel that these edtech startups can collaborate with these universities and institutes to bring out more what they have, or to find that this is what they need to get from the university as help and has their upskillings also?
Sure. See, EdTech is a space which is now wide open, and there are so many opportunities in this space, which me and you can't. Let's look at it like this. 1 year back, we heard about, OpenAI. Then started the era of co-pilots. Now, it was 6 months old when it gave itself to action pilots. And now, 4 months later, it becomes conversational AI. And each one is an idea for any tech startup, and specifically EdTech startup. Imagine that can you provide a tutor 24/7 in the language of the learner worldwide to every student. Now this is something called My Tutor in your own language, anytime you want to learn. Now this itself is a huge idea itself, and then if you look at it from academia standpoint, the entire academia starting from K-12 to ITIs, to polytechnics, to degrees, to diploma education, this completely maps with them. Other areas like learning pattern recognition. Now this is the areas which are full of new innovations, because if we can recognize the learning style of a learner at any stage, the solutions are very different. Of course, there's a big challenge about trainers, and maybe we can touch that separately. But from a technology standpoint, all the EdTech startups can actually come to academia with a value add of either it is helping the student learning, or it is helping the trainer delivering the solution. So if anything is happening on this line, academia would definitely do it. Only one last piece which you said in the beginning, industry and academia are working together. That's one huge area. And in fact, we work with the government, and where it's like if one polytechnic, 5 or 6 polytechnic take up one industry nearby, and then that becomes the lab for them, is the way forward. And we are seeing this happening in Orissa, we have this in UP, Delhi. So many of the examples are coming up. So there is an industry hub which is a hub, and there are spokes around it. So thank you, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, so I think it's really a good point. I mean, I have my colleagues here from Mudbi who are with me from Mahe. One of the problems I have actually faced is this lack of connect between industry and academia. I think as Sunil rightly pointed out, the space of ed startups have really opened up. So what can some of the universities do? One is, could you do a joint development of curriculum, which is something really missing in our country today. You go out of India, you'll see a lot of collaborative efforts between universities and industries thinking about joint curriculum. Number two, today's university students, when they graduate, this is a real problem. They immediately want a 25 lakh salary, right? Their whole vision is, I have been there, I've done that, I've graduated the really top MBA program. I would like the 25 lakh a salary. That doesn't happen. No startups can actually pay that much, right? So there has to be some sort of grounded understanding about what is the sort of learning you will get when you get into these sorts of environment. But most of our MBA students don't think about it. So I think recruitment-wise, also for a startup, it is always difficult to get a master's in business or a really, a very high-paying role what they want. The third thing is about pedagogy and sort of curriculum, which I think there is a lot of effort that needs to happen between universities, between technical institutes, engineering schools, business schools, law schools, and to work with startups. I think if we can come together, we can get an excellent ecosystem of really good smart learners. And it's a shame that we are not able to do it at this point. But I know the next 5 to 10 years are highly critical. And with the sort of space opening like no one's business, I think there's a lot more effort that needs to go in. And certainly Mahe, my own university is putting in a lot of effort into this and ensuring that the gap between industry and academia is bridging. It certainly is not going to be completely over, but the bridging part of it is something that we have taken on quite seriously. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to know, but I wanted to add on with this, that how is technology and I would ask from your different perspective point of view, from the university point of view and from the startup point of view, that technology is playing a very important role, as you quoted. AI is playing a very important role, as you quoted. So I would say, how have you adopted those technology and advanced them to bring your startups, and how is the technology you have adopted in your university that you can help the students to brush or to upbring their skills?
Okay, so it works both ways. One is generally universities are very reticent about bringing in technology because they feel it's not necessary to do so much in that space. But you know, the times are changing. The learner and the teacher model both are changing, right?
Yeah.
So for example, in most of our universities now, at least in business schools, certainly I can speak, and I'm sure my colleagues can speak a lot about engineering school, is we are now bringing in idea labs. We're trying to bring in, you know, different ways of evaluating assessing students. How do you bring in tech to assess students? How do you teach economics? Economics is no longer taught by straight demand and supply curve, right? You have a lot of visual aids that come in to teach sort of complex and technical courses like economics, right? Even, for example, I run a course which is basically using real money investing in stock markets. Now, if you don't understand the use of a Bloomberg terminal or a Reuters terminal, you really don't understand how markets move. So every university has now decided, or at least thought about, integrating technology in the classroom. And that is what is going to distinguish between a university that is very futuristic vis-a-vis a university that is still 10 years behind, right? So in every aspect, be it undergraduate, be it a law school, be it an engineering school, medical school, you really have to bring in tech. Both from faculty. Now, the other point I wanted to add is many of the faculty are very uncomfortable when you introduce new technology, because for them it is a sense of, do we really need this, right? But understand the mind of the learner. The learner is never going to be comfortable with a conventional approach. So therefore, the faculty training, which is about upskilling the faculty, is equally important when you spend in millions of dollars of technological products in a business school or in a university. So it has to work both ways. And we are actually on it anyway.
Yeah, I just want to add, in a very simple terms, what we have been able to do is get the individualized learning possibility for a student who is still learning to get a job, or an individual who is planning to open an enterprise. So what we have done is, the power of co-pilots is right on their mobile phone. So with their mobile phone, they have a trainer or a teacher or a coach or a mentor which is 24/7 and who has the knowledge of the entire web and who can speak and answer in text, in speech, in their own language. So if I enter myself as somebody from Karnataka, automatically it will give me option of Kannada or English. And if I happen to be in Philippines, it will give me Filipino English or in British English or American English. So that's what we have been able to do, is get the power of AI to the learner in any environment, skilling or entrepreneurship.
That's great. But since I myself is into the skill development program side, I always wanted to ask, how do you all identify that with the incorporation of this technology or with the incorporation of this particular thing in the system, the students are needing these skills? How do you identify the skill need of what skill is being needed for the future? What models do you all have to identify that?
Okay, so this is a really complex question, but a very important question. Because
and it has come out from most of the big CEOs of all the companies that they have their jobs vacant lying and they're still waiting for those skilled employees.
I totally agree. I think this is not just the CTOs, but if you read the World Economic Forum report, it actually talks very much about this. The WEF in its report continuously talks about what universities are actually not doing. So here are some key points I like to make. One is, when we design a curriculum, we are looking at what are the skill sets needed. So number one could be analytical thinking, critical thinking, technological literacy, right? communication skills, interpersonal skills. So the programs that a good university should design should take into account the skill sets that are needed for the next 5 to 10 years, right? And on top of the skill set is technological literacy. That does not just mean that how you use your computers, but you know, how effective are you in designing a curriculum that uses technology to teach even a domain course, right? So if you don't do that, the employers of tomorrow will not hire you. We spoke about CTOs saying, look, I have 80,000 vacancies, but I don't have people ready. I will tell you, 80% of the engineers who come out are not employable. 50% of the management guys are not employable. The reason being, the curriculum or the pedagogy they have done is not sufficient enough for the demands the industry is asking. And this goes back to my fundamental point. The minute universities stop thinking that they don't need the industry, their careers are over. You have to integrate and work extremely closely with what is the industry wanting. Until you do that, your CTOs or CMOs or CFOs, your CHROs will not touch you even with the barge pole. And that is why many of the graduates today are not employable. So go back to the foundational point about integrating and jointly developing curriculum. So the courses should be taught with the industry. Then you will really get two perspectives. One is a fundamental perspective, and the second being the technical or industry perspective. Thank you.
So I'd just like to add, I think, actually the importance on the, nowadays it's not called soft skills, it's called power skills.
Oh.
Now, if you look at power skills on one side and domain skills on the other side. Now, as we talk, the power skills are changing. Let me give an example. I was in US. Today, if you look at what is the highest paid job for an engineer, the role people might not have even heard of a year back. It's a prompt engineer. Now, prompt engineer needs to write a Google prompt, which we write in one line. Can they write in 14 pages? Now, if this has to happen, whether you are a science, commerce, arts, any individual, any student into entrepreneurship, the creative thinking is the most important need today. Because if you can think creatively, then you can connect the dots and you can make that happen. So from that perspective and power skills, the addition of problem solving, sir already said about creative thinking, adaptive thinking, then design thinking, all these things are very, very critical apart from age-old like communication and teamwork and that part. So that's the clear requirement on the power skills as we evolve. And no doubt the startup mindset, many of the employers ask for this. Only point is the employees should not give up and they should try new things versus just follow a line. So these are those things which we train also, and these are the emerging areas. But in terms of as quantum computing comes up, as AI is now coming up, so obviously lots and lots of creativity has to come in.
I just want to add one point. I just want to take from Sunil's startup mindset. One of the things I like to see is entrepreneurial mindset. Does the person have that, right? You don't have to go to a top business school to be just a job seeker. Can you actually be a job creator? So why does somebody go to Harvard and why does somebody go to Stanford, right? Where do most of the startups come from and where do most of the networking happens? Both these top schools do things very differently, right? So the entrepreneurial mindset is necessary in today's day for you to be successful.
Okay. Since you are talking about a lot of entrepreneurial skills and also from both of your sides, since you're at a higher position and you all understand the environment, so I just want to know, how do you all develop, can you all throw some light on developing EDPs, the entrepreneurial development programs? How do you all, what do you all see, what are the factors that you all consider in developing that program?
Yeah. Okay, so see, there is this entrepreneurial mindset. Of course, one thing is becoming clearer, that the country would never have the number of jobs required equivalent to the number of students passing out. That's never going to happen. So it is very important and evident now that people have to create jobs. Now to do this, what is happening, and I think I am very glad to share with all of you, the entrepreneurial mindset is starting from grade 7 in this school. And whether it is the EMC curriculums of various governments in India, or ensuring that making sure the student is given some chance to try and fail. No problem, even if you fail. But if that trying and failing happens, that's the way it starts from schools. Before it goes into the real programs in colleges, and which is hardcore. You have startup labs, and you get onto that part. But this seed has to be sowed very, very early, because there are kids which have which absolutely were not even attending these schools just because of this topic, because their creativity started emerging. So that's where they started attending schools. So maybe that's an early start to this, can start from schools itself. And the entrepreneurial mindset as such, just to share with you, almost a year in a state, let me not name it, they spend only in finding out gaps around them, what is wrong around them. Then 1 year later, they make groups. Which one can be solved? Now, if this happens in school, we are in for making entrepreneurs in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted the word. I was also looking for experimentation. If we can allow our kids to experiment and fail, I think that would be wonderful. I have three of my colleagues here from Mudbi. Santosh will talk tomorrow about what we do at Manipal and how we actually help startups. At the Bangalore campus, we have a unit called MILES, which is the Manipal for Leadership and Entrepreneurial sort of studies. So where we are actually looking at how do you create entrepreneurs, right? Okay. And our group is really, really big in this, and we want to make sure that we are able to create job creators. That is something that we've been lacking for the last 10, 15 years as a country. But I think in the last 10 years, Sunil also would agree that much has changed, and there's a lot more focus now on making this sort of a dream into a reality. So as a university, we are absolutely committed. Also, the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention is most business schools today in India are not really focusing on entrepreneurship, either as a full-fledged degree or as a large specialization, particularly because many of the students who walk into business schools have taken huge loans, right? And they have to start repaying the loans at some point in time. So for them, additional 2 or 3 or 5 year investment would mean that they have to cover the EMI. And that is one issue why today many business school grads are moving straight into the jobs and then perhaps getting a 5-year experience and then moving into their own venture. As today we saw in the Dangal, 2 or 3 different groups. So I think we have to do a lot more work, Nishu, in this area for us to be successful, and as a country that really talks a lot about entrepreneurial mindset and also delivering on the stage.
See, that's nice. I've seen policies being made. I've seen policies being implemented, but I yet to have to see the effectiveness of these programs being implemented, and how, when it comes down to you both, how do you take the responsibility of measuring the effectiveness of the policies and the programs that you have talked about?
So one way to do this today is to have a look at, I live in Bangalore city, which is the startup capital, right? So there is no need to even tell people that what Bangalore stands for. So what I would like to see and this cannot happen overnight, but I'm saying to you over the next decade, we should be able to see some phenomenal startups, number of startups coming in from our country. And the government has now said, look, we want to have a really single window clearance. We don't want startups to have a lot of hassles. There's a lot of funding that the government is putting in. DST is putting a lot of funding as well. I know we have been successful. Tomorrow I hope Santosh will talk about all of the things that we do at Manipal as a group. So I think there are very, very good things happening. Now, if you ask about parameters and metrics, I think I would like to see, at least from my own university, a certain percentage of job creators as opposed to job seekers. Number 2, I would like to see at least 30 to 35% of the courses jointly developed with the industry. Number 3, I would like to see centers of excellence that have been set with the industry, particularly in family business and also in entrepreneurship, which is something we don't pay much attention. That's a very huge area. Number 4 is there's enormous research space that happens in family business around the world. And India is a great example of family firms and how those second, third generation founders are being so successful. I think much more research needs to happen in that space as well. There will be some of the key points I would like to throw out.
I just want to add maybe sir already covered the ease of business side. The other part is how many of them want to reach that, and whether it's MSDE or NISBERT or all that aspect. Are we truly making entrepreneurship in the DNA of our education system? I think if that happens, and I must share with you like our own experience in India, we have been running 2 programs. One program is called Ignite, which is just to see do you have it in you or you don't have it in you. Now if you have it in you, then the next one is Liftoff, which is your practice venture to a real venture. And the way we are seeing college adoptions and the way we are seeing it is expanding, so it's heartening to see. But I fully agree with you because ease of business and the policies which support it at all the levels is extremely important. And see, I must give you the one example. When I visit Mexico and if there are 100 students in the class and I ask them, okay, what do you want to do? 99 hands will go up, we will open our own business. In India, it's totally different. In fact, all 100 will go up, we need a job. Then some of them will say, later we'll do business. So now this has to change from right in the beginning. So education and entrepreneurship should go hand in hand from beginning. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
That's nice. I would just like to end the question with last question, that since you both, one is from the university side, one is from the incubation startup side, I still feel, and we all still feel, that when you both are going to join hands together and bring out the best of startups that we want to look into, why do we still need platforms like the external platforms when you both powerhouses are there? So when and how do you plan to work together on the same page?
Wow, okay. So you're talking about universities and skilling foundations, which is my colleague here saying from joining hands. I think that requires no invitation actually. I think it's a given that this has to happen. I'll tell you 2 very simple reasons. The government of India's focus today is exclusively on how do you skill people. And that is absolutely an important thing to do. And I was talking to you about the Miles unit at Bangalore. That Miles unit at Bangalore campus is actually open for anyone, even at the year 12 schooling, right? So we think skilling is a very low level thing, unfortunately. And that's a real sad way to look at today's world. So from my perspective, Nishu and others who are in the audience today, is absolutely we would love to work with great foundations like Vadvani Foundation, others who do a lot of skilling. And perhaps the joining of forces or combining forces is certainly the way to go. And if we were to do it, we would be somebody very different to a university that doesn't really think about this. So I'm extremely committed in ensuring that there are ways we can bring in some structure, some semblance, some sort of architecture to this idea. And I'm very, very ready for this. When as a university, we're very ready for this.
No, I would just like to, let me say this thing that we don't even start without the industry. Our start point is always the industry. What is happening if industry need prompt engineers in lakhs in India by next year? How do we take it back to academia and produce them? So actually speaking, the whole work starts really with the employer first. And if that approach is taken by most of us, automatically we'll be there in terms of the technology movement as well as what industry demands. And from industry, what we get is very, very micro level problems, which in itself are small businesses on its own. So frankly, if those problems come out and then we share it with our startup ecosystem, then there are many youngsters who start thinking about solving those problems. So actually it starts everything from industry, and then the whole system has to come back to take care of the needs of the industry. So we are always together as a Vadvani Foundation, we are always there. But definitely, I know your question is from a larger perspective.
Yes.
Absolutely. From that perspective, if everything starts from there first, I'll give you this example of Singapore. There is a university where one of the last semester, is not defined at all by academia. It is defined by the industry trends in that 6 months.
Oh.
So it automatically changes the whole scope altogether. Right. Thank you.
I just wanted to add one maybe quick 30 seconds or 10 seconds maybe. One problem that I see of a lot of sort of interest in this country is the lack of interdisciplinary work. So students who are doing business tend to do business courses. Students who are doing engineering tend to do engineering only. They don't actually have a very unstructured view of why can't I take a cognitive neuroscience from medical school? Why can't I take architecture from the architecture school? Because we don't allow them to do it. At Berkeley, if you're a graduate student, 30% of your courses have to come from non-business school, which means you're exposed to a multiple set of ideas. So that is something we should do. Secondly, the Bangalore campus, what we're doing is we're creating a platform of inviting a lot of startups coming to our campus and providing them with some space. So a student will be able to have a coffee with the founder, an undergrad student, and saying, what are you working on? So when you have those levels of engagement and conversation, there's some sort of spark, ignite. That ignition will start to kick in. And I think that will also be a really big motivating factor. So thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Madhu, and thank you so much, Mr. Sunil Dhaya, for your lovely fireside chat. And there are a lot of takeaways that I've taken from your chat. That is gamification, and then there is app that needs a mapping that can map the gap in the education sector. Joint curriculum with the industry. That's very, very important because I'm working with both the sides. I'm working with the university, I'm working with the startups. And from my side, I would just say that they both have to go hand in hand and hold each other so that what is lacking in the university, the incubation center can provide, while the incubation center, what it is lacking, the university can provide. So both need to be on the same track. This is what I feel. Thank you so much for coming and gracing startupkamahakumbh, and we look forward for your more contribution to the event. Thank you for the lovely patience.